It's hard to believe that the team beaten 8 tries to 0 yesterday, Manly, is the same team that beat Parramatta in a KB Cup semi-final, then put on that performance that won them the KB Cup final against Newtown. Yeah, same team, same coach, 5 successive premiership losses. Let me introduce the panel, then we'll have a look at yesterday's tape. Frank Hyde, Greg Hartley, Ray Chesterton, Jeff Prenter and Peter Peters. Gentlemen, what do you say we express our opinions over the tape? Let's get the tape on the show and have a look at what happened yesterday.
Think Manly are watching this one?
No, I think that they'd still be drinking their sorrows away after that shocking performance.
There's not much you can say, Case. They got flogged 8 tries to none. It's the worst performance ever from a Manly side against Eastern Suburbs. The defence was pathetic, and they're in more trouble than any side we've seen going to the semi-finals in years. 8 tries to 0.
What we forget yesterday was that until this first try at the 28 minute mark, there's 20 minutes of very dull football preceded this, in which there's a lot of spilt ball.
Very scrappy. But East were able to overcome all that and still put on probably their best performance since they last won the grand final.
They blundered in a lot of ways, Manly, going into that game. First of all, a rest at this stage of the season, even though the players have had a lot of football. You know, they were jaded yesterday. East finished all over the top of them. It was, 2-2 at 31 minutes, and then the floodgates opened. And when players refuse to tackle together, that's the result of it. And that's a humiliating loss. And it takes a lot of the gloss off a superb East display.
But you could excuse Manly if they played the final of the KB Cup last Wednesday night. But it was Wednesday week, and the week spell was supposed to do everybody a lot of good. But it's obvious that it didn't. Plus, of course, the form of Eastern Suburbs, which was superb, the best I've seen from them in years.
Latest 17-2 at the half-time score. We still don't know, I don't anyhow, how Schubert's going to go at fullback, and I know that'll get a ton of abuse on my shoulders, but not once was as a fullback was any pressure put on Schubert yesterday.
Oh, gee, he played well in the open, though.
He did. Oh, yes, I'm not saying that for a second, but what I am saying, we still don't know if he can cut it as a fullback.
Well, have a look at him here, take this ball and set up this try. It's just superb football from Schubert.
Yes, but he could have done this as a centre, though, Pete. He wasn't subjected to
I don't know what you
blokes
want a fullback to do.
I want to see him take bombs.
Well, he didn't have to
is
do
that
anything.
the criteria now for a fullback?
That is the criteria.
Well, heaven help
And
rugby
also
league.
tackling players coming to score tries. He didn't have to tackle anybody.
He was
what
aided
about the
by
attack?
Manly's
What
poor
about giving
defence in that situation.
Oh,
Walker
look
missed
at
him
that.
underneath and Vorton over the top.
I think that's one of the things that has to be taken into consideration when assessing Eastern Suburbs' form. Sure, it was a great performance. They did everything properly. They scored the 8 tries. But Manly were absolutely pathetic. And it's wrong to knock East. They did everything they had to do. But boy, oh boy, look at that Manly defence. It's just non-existent.
But nobody's knocking East. The case suggested that he wasn't tested as a full-back. As a player, he was superb, and he got a lot of the men of the matches. I mean, we're not criticising him as a full-back. It's just that he wasn't put to the test as a full-back. That's what you mean.
I think that's exactly it.
Your game doesn't make a top fullback.
You'll get his chance next week.
He wasn't put to the test. Manly didn't score a try, and they didn't put a bum up. So, that's not Schubert's fault.
No, and look, don't be so defensive. I'm not saying that. I'm simply qualifying Schubert's performance.
As a defensive fullback, he wasn't tested.
Yes.
No, nor he was. And he won't be next week when they play Canberra.
But it also dented a few reputations. Those Blake brothers, who've been so magical all year, just weren't cited against the power of Cleal and Giddo.
No worse than anybody else in the Manly side, though.
No, but those young fellows, I thought, might have lost their place for the semi-finals now, Frank.
I only had 2 players on that side yesterday that are entitled to get any payment from that match, and that's Alan Thompson, the 5'8",
Paul
and Paul McCabe, the second row. The rest were dreadful.
How many hands did this go through for this?
16.
Okay, how many of the Eastern Suburbs players in those 16 hands were put down?
None.
Now, that's despicable in first-grade football.
I don't think Noel Cleal played the ball once in the whole game, Case.
Well, what happens now down at Manly? Does Richie get the sack? If he's working for a corporation and he had to answer to a board of directors, that's exactly what had happened to him.
Ron, the same coach produced a team that beat Parramatta and I thought one of the best performances of the year only a few weeks ago.
Case, answering your question, I say they don't do anything drastic because they're landed with this team. They've got 5 weeks of football to go before the end of the season if they make it, and there was nothing in their reserve grade side to suggest that any of those should come up after yesterday either.
I disagree. I think they've got to bring some players up, and a player I'd bring up is Chris Close. Max Krillage played yesterday and shouldn't have played, and he should have known better. And he's a mate of mine, Max, but that doesn't... he played yesterday 50% fit, and against a side like East, that's murder.
I'd bring Ian Thompson into the side for his scrummaging ability. Krillage lost 5 scrums in a row, and football teams can't play without the
But
ball.
Les Boyd will
Gotta
come
bring
back.
him up.
Les Boyd will
Oh,
come
Les
back, which
Boyd
will help
will
the
be back.
defence, and I'd bring back Terry Randall because those forwards there yesterday just weren't tackling.
Well, I agree with you, Ray. That's what
Terry,
lost the
they
match.
need tough men in that pack, and they need Boyd and they need Terry because they intimidate the opposition. Their mere presence is enough.
Yeah, at whose expense?
I would drop Walker and I would drop Vorton.
They've got to bring in some toughness. They were meek and mild and just no toughness about them yesterday. Full marks to Dave Brown and John Harvey, though. I thought they had tremendous games for East.
Let's remember this morning, because suddenly these eastern suburbs youngsters, Brown, etc., are being mentioned as kangaroo tourists. And let's see in 3 weeks' time, are they still front runners on, after a few more premiership
week to
games.
week, isn't it?
It is, week to week, and the reputations that are up there one week are in tatters the next week.
That's right, Case. Look, on the one hand, we have eastern suburbs who weren't the better side against Canterbury Bankstown last week. They're on top of the world. We have Manly, on the other hand, who won the KB Cup, and now you're wanting to drop fellas out of the side that got them to within second place of the competition at this stage, and the semis are on next week. I can't understand it.
What you just said is so true, Case, because only last Monday Graham Eadie declared himself unavailable and everyone's gone shock horror. On yesterday's display, Wombat would be,
Lucky to
much
make
more
the
happy
side.
to be on DY Beach.
Okay, just with that eastern suburb side, we're forgetting, I think, that's a very good side. This is the sort of teams that make rugby league legends. Remember the 50s when South Sydney had to go through that second round undefeated to retain the premiership, and it got back to the fellow we had on earlier kicking that goal, Clive Churchill, after time against Manly to get them into the four, and they won the premiership. They have now won 14 out of 17 East. They're a good side. They're coming good at the right moment. They'll go very close. They deserve plenty of credit.
What does Bobby Fulton do next week when Aleph is fit? Who goes out, Brown or Harvey?
Neither.
No, neither.
So Aleph, who's been there all year and been a big force...
You have got to be kidding.
Has
You
to
have
stay
got
down.
to be
No way,
kidding.
you don't change this team.
Yes, you do.
I bet it's
You put
changed.
Aleph in and you drop Harvey. You be sensible.
No, you're kidding.
Harvey or Brown?
Excuse me, you drop Harvey.
Aleph must
Okay.
have a bad injury because he wouldn't walk around the oval.
You've got to be kidding. Listen, Harvey has had so many convictions against him. He plays one good one yesterday, and you put him back over the best prop forward in Australia. You've got to be kidding.
Best prop forward who?
Yes, Royce Aleph.
Turn it up, Case.
All right, let's go now to the dressing room. Ray Chesterton.
Ray, what went wrong?
Well, we lost those first 6 scrums early, and East had such good ball control and were so disciplined that they got right into us, and we didn't tackle, and that was the name of the game.
What about the tackling? Have you ever seen it so bad?
Well, it was bad, but East were playing so well too. East did play well. Our tackling was bad, there's no doubt about that, and it's something that's got to be rectified. It's got to be rectified in a week.
Well, that's 5 losses in a row. Where does Manly go from here?
Oh, we are fortunate in this respect that we can come back to the well next week, and we're far from finished. That was a great win by East today, and we've got to go on from here, so we'll just have to get our tails up and go on.
Ray, have you ever been in charge of a Manly side that's been thrashed like that?
No, that's the worst defeat I've ever had in playing or coaching.
Very comprehensive win. Did you expect it to be that easy?
Well, you wouldn't say so before the game, but, as we spoke about before the game, they had to come up with 70% possession to win the game, and we considered that we only had to have 50% because our defence is far better than theirs. But the way it turned out, through our strong defence, they were coughing up the ball a lot, and we ended up coming up with probably possession rate. We had it 41 times to their 26, and I think under those circumstances, if you look back on the game in hindsight, you'd say, well, the score indicated how much possession we had and how they couldn't cope with our attack.
And I wonder how long it'll be before Bob Fulton is coaching Manly. Now let's go to the dressing room. Ray Chesterton talks to Max Krillage.
What exactly is the problem?
Well, I've damaged the medial ligaments, and camera. Don't know what's going to happen.
Is an operation likely?
Well, I hope not,
Are you going to have checks to make sure?
Yeah.
Well, during the week?
Possibly Monday, as quick as early as I could. I had a check on it last week, and they said I tore the fibres of the ligaments, and it hasn't responded at all. It's very painful. So,
If it is medial, it will put you out of the kangaroo tour.
well, if they've got to get the blade out of it, it does. It depends. They reckon it's only the fibres. I might just need a bit of rest, a week off.
Max, what do you think's gone wrong with Manly? That's 5 losses in a row.
Well, today particularly, I thought the eastern suburbs were outstanding. They were absolutely outstanding. We gave them back the ball all day. They had a lot of ball, and I got to give full credit to Western Suburbs rather than say why bad our side was. I thought they were very good.
Yeah, certainly East played very well today, but it is 5 in a row now for
It
Manly.
is 5 in a row, yes, and that's something that we're going to have to come to terms with ourselves and the team and work that out. But I'm not going to take anything away from the Eastern Suburbs.
Mate, I've got to ask you this. During the week you mentioned that East were a side that might possibly fold under pressure.
Well, there is a time when you're proven wrong, and I was proven wrong.
Was it easier than you expected?
Well, you know, they're never easy. We had our troubles in the first, say, 15, 20 minutes with the referees, and, you know, decisions were going against us, and we just stuck to our guns. When we got the ball, we attacked well, and, you know, we came up with the goods. But like I said, it's never easy.
What caused the change? How can you be offside with the referee for the first 20 minutes and then be sweet again?
I don't know. I don't know. You know, different interpretations by different referees.
Did you change your style?
No, I just kept playing the same way, but when I asked him about his decisions, he told me to get back in the line. He said, look at my arms and the signals I give. And, you know, it's my prerogative to ask him what the penalties were for, because I was the captain today, and he just sent me back to the line. So, you know, I didn't bother after a couple.
People watching the game thought that the biggest carve-up since the abattoirs closed on Friday afternoon was underway. And what Martin Weeks was up to, I do not know, but you could only see Eastern Suburbs making mistakes and usually within kicking distance. Now, we've put together some of the incidents that caused penalties, and I'm asking the panel just to have a look at these, and as we look, just tell me what you think now. Have a look at this.
Well, Marston's not in the scrum for a start.
Well, excuse me, where's the bomb thrower?
Well, Marston's head was up, Case. You can't, you know, on that first one, you couldn't knock him for that.
Yes, his ruling were not that they were going in with a loose arm, but they didn't get down in the scrum, and he penalised Krillage for that later on too.
He was entitled to explain to Hastings.
Masterman on at least 5 or 6 occasions throughout that match refused to pack.
That's a forward pass. It's a blatant forward pass.
There's no argument about that. That was a definite forward pass. It had to be.
A throw forward, yes.
I know, another. You know, that was just blatant. And there's the signal.
Good clear signal.
Yeah, that's a move for Bobby to eliminate.
Now, I couldn't understand that.
Well,
that came off penalty. The feet of the man he played the ball.
Well, look at Masterman, Case. He won't bend his back. He's not in the scrum.
That's what he's
That's the
signalling.
signal.
That's
He's
the
not
signal
going
bending
down.
over.
He's standing up. He didn't bend his legs.
And has been penalised before, of course.
You know, I mean, he's not an angel,
Now,
Masterman.
looking at those again, I think there's some justification for a couple of weeks.
Well, the scrums at half-time was 7-6 in favour of Manly.
The scrums were, yeah, but
Sorry,
what
the
about
penalties at half-time?
Yeah, what about your penalty count full-time? 13-6.
13-8.
13-8. Almost a ratio of 2 to 1.
But it was 6-1 after 14 minutes, which was what was causing all the trouble with
Yes,
people.
but looking at that again,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
hard
in
to argue with
fairness,
some of those decisions.
it's hard to argue with them. That's the point, right? That's why I think television is the ultimate fair judge.
In 80 minutes of rugby league, Martin Weeks yesterday possibly made one error, and that was, I think, was either the first or second try. It was slightly forward, and that, to me, from a referee's point of view, was the only error that the man made all day.
He's a mate of yours,
Oh,
now,
no,
isn't he?
wait,
He is a mate of mine.
I knew he
I'll
was.
argue that
Yeah,
one.
he
You
is.
can't tell me they were good scrums.
No, he had to work on them. He tried. He never stopped trying. They weren't good scrums. But I give him
but he let
top
scrums-
marks for trying all
He
the
let
time.
scrums go that the ball came off the feet of the front row forwards for a start, when it's supposed to come in behind the second row and the inside feet, and they were coming out, and particularly on this blind side where we broadcast from, the scrums were let go that were pulled up on the other side.
Score was 40-2. We've seen 8 of the best tries we've seen in rugby league, and here we are discussing the pros and cons of a referee.
Well, I think we should.
Only as
because
part and parcel of the big
parcel of the game, because Manly is under a cloud so far as referees is concerned, and I'm not going to be one to stop talking about it. After this commercial break,
You
we'll
did
be
too well
back.
yesterday.